Welcome to Hancock's VMware Half Hour. And welcome back to another episode of Hancock's VMware Half Hour. Well, so if you've been watching the last couple of videos, I was intrigued really recently by a lot of discussion and chat about a particular issue with Windows virtual machines. Windows 10, Windows 11, Windows Server 2016, 2019, 2022 and 2025. And it's all really to do with the recovery partition that is installed by default when you install one of those versions of Windows to a virtual machine. And how it gets in the way of expanding a virtual disk or extending a virtual disk, because the recovery partition is actually at the end of the disk. And when you actually, as I've shown in the last couple of videos, when you add and extend the virtual disk, that's after the recovery partition, which doesn't allow you easily to extend the partition. Now, in the first couple of parts of this video, part 1 and part 2 we'll call them, in the first version of this I actually basically showed you how to use gparted live CD-ROM to extend and expand and manipulate your partitions so that you could extend that partition if you want to keep the recovery partition. As I've made quite clear, I don't really think that there is a need for a recovery partition in a virtual machine, but however, if you want to keep the recovery partition, I showed you with gparted how to do that. In the second video we had a little look at two products, AOMEI Partition Assistant, and we also basically looked at ESXi, and we quickly found, annoyingly, that the free versions of these aren't going to basically do diddly squat for your server virtual machine at all. You know, it's basically going to turn around and say no can do, that place in the Himalayas again, and you're going to have to basically go off and part with some money to do it. So they're a complete waste of time if you're using a server version. So I was curious. Curiosity got the better of me, so I thought, okay, let's revisit this using Windows 11. So here I've got a Windows, I will have a Windows 11 machine. There we go. I've got a Windows 11 virtual machine. Let's just zoom in on that for you. And what we're going to do, we're going to do exactly the same thing. I've already basically created a snapshot of this particular virtual machine. And interestingly, you know, when I actually spun this virtual machine up, I already found, I don't know why, I can't remember what I was doing with this virtual machine before. But what I actually found was it already had a 16 gig unallocated space after the recovery partitions was already there. So I must have been doing something with this before and I left it like it. So we're going to repeat exactly the same thing that we did in the last video, but I'm going to use these two tools. Now, they're not on this virtual machine, they're on my NAS. So I'm just basically going to connect to that NAS. He says if he can spell it and see it. I think I've maybe got that wrong. Just thinking about it. Let's just try and run that again. Okay, username and password. And we'll install these tools. There we go. That's the second. So I did actually basically get it right. Okay, so I've copied these and created a folder called Partition Tools. Partition Tools. And the first one we're going to install is we're going to install this Partition Assistant which is by AOMEI. I must admit, I'm going to get really annoyed if we try and do the same thing with this particular tool and it turns around and says to me that, you may remember if you watched the last video, it came up basically and turned around and said that it could not move or resize. And after doing a little bit of digging, that was because it was running on a server copy of the operating system. So I'm hoping that we don't get into the same issue again. So I'm just going to quickly install this. Try demo, skip, install. I'm going to install this. We've already got a snapshot, so we can actually basically very quickly just revert, and then we'll install the what are we doing? ESXi. Like, you know, these tools have been around for a very long time, and as I sort of kind of said to you before, really, I don't really like installing software into a virtual machine that can touch it, just to be able to expand the partition, really. I don't really know what, you know, even if we uninstall this, I'm not quite sure really if anything's actually left behind. And with the amount of malware and Trojans and ransomware type software really anymore, you know, I'm cautious what really I install in my virtual machines now, and in all virtual machines, you know, both in the home lab here and obviously in production as well. Okay, so I'm just going to maximize this. Okay, yeah, it's giving us the nag already that it wants us to part with some money. If you remember, of course, this is our recovery partition, which is actually basically sitting at the end of the disk, but not right at the end, because this is where we've got our unallocated 16 gig that we really want to add to this. So the first thing we're going to have to do really is move that partition. I don't think that if we do a resize and move, no, we can't do anything on that partition at the moment. So we have actually got to right click our recovery partition and say move it down to the end of the disk. Okay, and then we can actually go to our resize and move, and we can then basically expand that, and we can click OK, and we're going to click apply. Now, the last time we did this on the server 2025, you know, it popped up and turned around and said sorry, you know, cannot resize move. So I'm hoping this time when I click apply, it's going to basically give me something different. Okay, so I'm going to click proceed. It says check partitions before execution, so I would assume it's probably going to do a check disk or something like that. To speed this up, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go ahead and click proceed. Okay, restart into Windows PE mode. So it's obviously got a Windows PE tool that it's actually basically going to use. So the RDP session is actually going to drop. So tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to launch a web console session so we can have a little look at that. So I'm going to click OK. Operation in progress. It's creating the Windows PE. And when that actually basically shuts down and restart, then we're actually basically switch to our console version, and we can see what it's doing. So it's doing a little bit in Windows. The fact that it has to be installed in Windows, it's then probably basically shuffling the partitions around now, I would think, or installing Windows PE, so that when the machine actually basically restarts, it can chain that Windows PE disk, and then actually basically execute the task. Would have thought it would have been a little bit quicker than this. Operation progress 8%, 12%. Oh, okay, it's speeded up a little bit. Trying to think now. I can't remember whether or not that this particular, that did actually, yes. This is actually I'm sorry. This test part 2 VM is actually basically running on vSAN. I thought maybe for a moment it was actually running on one of our NFS Synology NASes, but this is actually running on vSAN because I made sure that I deployed the template to it. Well, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to bob off. I'm going to drink some of my Pepsi Max. We'll speed a little bit of up in post, and then we'll switch out to the console when it shuts down and restarts the machine. So I'll be back shortly, and I'll speed this up in post. Okay, I thought I'd just jump back in here. Okay, so you've actually basically seen that restart. Now it's loading and booting from a Windows PE disk, and this is actually basically now where it's actually going to do the partition manipulation or partition mangling. So as I sort of kind of said to you before, you know, you do really want to ensure that you've got snapshots, you've got backups. Okay, it has completed that. So we're going to basically click restart now. Hopefully our Windows 11 machine is going to restart. And we'll log in and we'll have a look at the partitions in disk management, and we'll see whether or not that they're all completed. We've got no issues. Okay, let me just log in to this machine via the console. I won't log in via RDP. I'm wondering whether or not that we're going to get any sort of kind of prompt that actually basically runs from the application saying to us that all is going to be, it's completed successfully. Okay, so the healthy recovery partition is at the end of the disk, which is what we wanted. And we've actually basically managed to successfully expand our operating system partition. A little bit surprised, really, that the application didn't run, telling us that it'd been completed successfully. Or if it's thinking about it. It hasn't. Anyway, so a success. So certainly we can see that the AOMEI Partition Assistant Editor can certainly work with Windows 11, which is a workstation, which, as I kind of said to you before, yeah, it doesn't surprise me really that they believe that Windows 11 and Windows 10 are home lab, home PC sort of kind of versions. If you're using a server operating system at home, they're making the assumption that you're enterprise, a business, etc., and therefore you need parts